Good evening. Welcome. We are doing it. It is night 6. How are you doing on this night 6? Well, I think we're doing well. I don't know. I'm a little what's the word I can use? I'm a little um I guess personal with it, and I think we are doing quite well on night 6. I want to welcome everyone in tonight. We only have 24 more days to go. Are we going to make it till January 31st? And I say a big fat yes. Anybody else got a yes in their belly, a yes in their spirit, and a yes on that chat? Go ahead, if you will, and put on the screen. It is a yes for me. We are going to go through until January 31st, and we're going to make it happen. I've got some amazing news I want to share with everyone, but let's see, it looks like we're at 77. So maybe I'll share it more towards the end so we can get some static and some good stuff going on this event that we're going to be hosting and bringing everything home and making it all live. So welcome. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to night 6 of Understanding and Healing from Trauma, our series. Whether you're turning in live or catching the replay, I am so glad that you are here with me. This dedication that I'm seeing to this journey is inspiring, and I commend you for continuing to show up for yourself. Let's recap for a moment. Last night, we completed the trauma symptom checklist. It's known as the TCS 40. And I heard from a couple clients that I actually had a work day today, and they were like, oh, I was done. Right after I finished the checklist, I just went to bed. Lights out. It was over for me. And that's a good thing. That's very good that you are aware that it should be lights out sometime. No conversations, no more heavy lifting. You did enough heavy lifting while we were online. And at this point, it's just done. Going to bed. So a few of you may have been heavy hearted with that. And if so, remember to journal, remember to pray, remember to send an email. That's another form of journaling. We love to read your emails, and we will respond to those that require a response. So you made it through. You completed the trauma symptom checklist, which provided us with valuable insights into how trauma manifests in our lives. This self-reflective exercise allowed us to identify patterns, recognize symptoms, and gain a deeper understanding of the impact that trauma has had on our well-being. With the awareness gained from the TCS 40, the trauma symptom checklist last night, the next step is turning insight into action. Go ahead and put that on the chat screen, if you will. Action. Turning this awareness into action. Otherwise, what are we doing here? Just learning and taking in more information. You know, there's nothing worse than the person that knows too much but shows up with no personal application in their own life. I don't want that to be you. So now that we have this valuable insight into how trauma manifests in our lives, this exercise has gone and taken us to a place to identify patterns, recognize symptoms, and gain a deeper understanding of the impact trauma has had on our well-being. So with this awareness now that has been gained, we want to start working towards turning it from data, information, even education, from insight into action, bite-sized applicable steps. Awareness is a powerful tool. It really is. We've been talking about that every night that we've been here. But it's what we do with it that truly drives the transformation. It's the same thing for people perhaps that go to school or go to church. You can sit and hear the preacher. You can sit and read book after book after book. But if you don't have the plan, the motivation, or the support system to turn all of this information into action, there's no transformation. So awareness is a powerful tool, but it's what we do with it that truly drives transformation. Tonight, I'll show you how to use these insights as a foundation for intentional growth. So, before we go into that, I just want to remind everyone who has completed their assessment that there is a coaching invitation that has gone out to take the next step. And when you're taking the next step, you can learn a little further, a little deeper, more private, but yet more accountability to understanding your symptoms and patterns. It's the starting point, but healing often requires tailored support. That's where personalized coaching comes in. So I'd like to invite you to consider signing up for some one-on-one coaching sessions. And why? I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. 1, to help you develop those coping strategies. We've talked about them. You've gained the awareness of them. You've gained the insight of them. But is there any application so that it can be some transformation? So, to help you develop coping strategies, you're going to learn practical tools to address symptoms and triggers. We're going to deal with triggers over these next 30 days in your one-on-one sessions. Also, to help you set personal goals. Before you walk away from your 4 weeks, your 4 sessions with your coach, you are actually going to start your goal sheet, and we're going to help you to complete it. And it's going to help direct your steps. You're going to put hands and feet to all this information in your mind and in your heart. And we're going to help you create actionable steps towards emotional resilience and personal growth. Thirdly, you're going to gain support and that accountability you need in order to make it to the transformation stage. You're going to work with someone who understands your journey and is committed to walking alongside you. So for this series, I'm offering coaching at a special discounted rate, discounted by 75%, because it's only 4 sessions. That's all we're going to allow. And from the moment you sign up, you only have 4 weeks to get it done. We're not going to let you drag it on for 3 months and 6 months and a year. 4 sessions that are impactful and powerful, designed to be done while you're in this detox for 30 days. So even if you catch it and you get on board the very last week or the very last day of this online program, you can still get on. You will still get your 4 weeks. And then you will also have more of an idea of where it is that you really want to go specifically. But our goal is truly going to be those areas. We're going to help you with your coping mechanisms. We're going to pinpoint for you we're going to help you with coping skills. We're going to pinpoint your coping mechanisms. We're going to help you work and start putting into play those coping strategies over those 4 weeks. We're going to help you set a personal goal plan that will be the hands and feet to what you've learned in your head and your heart. And you're going to gain support and accountability to make sure that you put these things in place. And then after that, come on, somebody say after that, you will then have the option, like everyone else on here, to work with us for a longer period of time where we can really develop some prominent change in you, where we can work with you it would be great to work with you for 1 year. It would be great to work with you for at least 24 sessions over that year. That would be twice a month. Because that's when you're really going to see some significant change that you will be able to look at next year and say, wow, if I didn't get involved in this, I wouldn't be here. And if I didn't take the next step and jump into the coaching, I wouldn't be here. It all lines up and it's all there to support you. So that invitation is there for you. And it's to help you understand your symptoms, your patterns. You're going to be surprised at the patterns that are going to show up, because that's your starting point. But remember, healing requires tailored support. And that's what we've put in place for everyone who's online, who has RSVP'd on the website, a special program for 4 sessions, and it's a special rate just for you. And they are personalized to each individual. So I want to invite you to consider signing up for some one-on-one coaching sessions while this offer exists. It ends on January 31st. That's when it's over, on January 31st. And you can enroll the very last day, but you still have 4 weeks. So you're going to have to talk to your coach every single week. And that's the best way to get the work done. So for this series, again, I'm offering it. If you're interested, visit the website, www.suzannemhoward.com, to sign up. Send an email to ebony@suzannemhoward.com. And if Ebony can, if you're really not tech savvy, which you're going to have to get there, come on, guys, it's 2025. You can pop it in the chat. I'd like more information. And she can send it on over to you. But if you say that, she can only put it in the link because she doesn't have your email. So make sure you've set it up so that you can communicate. Okay. I want you to remember, healing is not a journey that you have to take alone. And coaching is a powerful way to stay focused and supported. So let's review Chapter 3, Understanding Trauma's Impact. In last night's session, we began Chapter 3, exploring how trauma is not just an event, but a complex experience that disrupts our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Let's briefly review what we covered. 1, what trauma is. Trauma overwhelms our capacity to cope. And it matters because I matter. And it doesn't matter that it doesn't matter to you. You get it? So everything that matters to me matters because it's regarding me. I'm not going to belittle or compare my issue with your issue or anyone else's issue or the issues of those that came out of the same family and household with me. Not doing it. Trauma is anything that overwhelms my capacity to cope. And it will leave lasting imprints on your minds and bodies. And I think we're there now where we understand that that's probably where we are. What are some common reactions to trauma? These include anxiety, depression, avoidance, and sleep disturbances. And that's the whole list there. We talked about the physical, right? The spiritual, the cognitive, and the emotional that the trauma can affect. And that covers all of them right there. Anxiety, depression, avoidance, and sleep disturbances. What else did we talk about? We talked about trauma's effect on relationships. This should be important to all of us. Trauma often creates feelings of isolation or disconnection, even from those we care about the most. So tonight's focus is going to be on completing Chapter 3. This evening, we'll continue our deep dive into Chapter 3, focusing on the neurobiological effects of trauma. What is that? How trauma changes the way our brain processes emotions and memories. We're going to talk about pathways to healing, approaches that integrate both the mind and body to address trauma's impact holistically, and resilience and recovery. How we can foster resilience and move towards reclaiming a sense of self. Does everybody want that? Come on. As I walk through these topics, feel free to share your thoughts, your reflections, and even your questions in the comments. Let's make this an interactive discussion. Your insights are valuable, not just to you, but to everyone in this community. Your reflection question for tonight: as we work through the second half of Chapter 3, I encourage you to reflect on the following. Number 1, what resonates the most with my personal experiences? What resonates the most with my personal experiences? Think about that. How long does it take now for answers to come up? Do they appear in words, in thought? Do you see the words? Do you see symbols? What is the gift that you have that helps you to see deeper into the depths of who you are in your soul? What resonates the most with your personal experiences? And then, how have you noticed trauma shaping your thoughts, your emotions, or your behaviors? Some might say, well, for one, I have intrusive thoughts that my friends don't deal with. So this has to be a response from the trauma. My emotions are up and down. majorly down, but for some people, they could be up and down to the point that the trauma has caused a personality defect. And you could have noticed that the trauma has shaped your behaviors by isolation, emotional numbness, where you don't feel joy or sadness. You're just flat, no affect towards life. What have you noticed that how trauma has shaped your thoughts, your emotions, and behaviors? And then number 3, for your reflection thoughts, what steps can I take to begin applying what I'm learning to my healing journey? I want you to answer that question. What steps can you take to begin applying what you've learned and what you'll continue to learn to your healing journey? How aware can you make yourself stay so that you don't forget this in February? Or when the summer comes, you toss it out and you're triggering and you're popping emotions and feelings all over the place and you're totally missing it. If you feel comfortable, share your reflections in the comments or jot them down privately for some later conversation or consideration. So for my closing encouragement for this portion, thank you for being a part of tonight's session. Remember, self-awareness is a powerful tool, and by gaining a deeper understanding of your trauma, you are taking meaningful steps towards healing. Progress may feel slow at times, but every step forward matters. Tomorrow, we'll build on tonight's insights by diving deeper into tools and strategies for managing trauma's effects and moving towards growth. I can't wait to share them with you. So let's move into the second half of chapter 3 and explore the neurobiological effects of trauma and the practical pathways to healing. Have your materials ready and let's begin. Because if you're ready to take the next step in this journey, don't forget to follow your book and doing your workbook exercises at the end. So let's pick up here on the points, the bullet points. And I know for sure we did very well on the physical response. But if you go all the way over to the next paragraph, it says emotional numbness and dissociation. Let's pick up where we have the first bullet for emotional numbness. This was very important to me. You may feel disconnected from your emotions or find it difficult to experience joy, sadness, or excitement. Life can feel flat, as though you are simply going through the motions. Then there's disassociation. This can include feeling detached from your body, having out of body experiences, or losing chunks of time. That is amazing. Have you ever had an experience like that where you've just lost chunks of time? While those coping mechanisms can help you survive in the short term, they can create long term barriers to your healing. By recognizing when you are emotionally shutting down or disassociating, you can begin to take steps towards reconnecting with yourself. Acknowledging the trauma without judgment. We are such judgmental people. And believe it or not, if you know anyone who seems to be very judgmental to you, you can best believe they are 10 times that judgmental towards themselves. It may not show up on the outside because they're, busy going about looking at the speck in everyone else's eye. But anyone who appears judgmental on the outside is 10 times as bad on their own self. So it's either going to show up in how harsh they are on themselves and you'll notice it, or it's going to show up with this this external images, external look where they're just so perfect and they're picking on everyone else's imperfections. Because we can be some very judgmental people. And it's sad because it lacks empathy and it's hurtful and it causes barriers to growth and development and failures, which is the key to success in life. It is absolutely one of them. So let's acknowledge trauma without judgment of ourselves. One of the most challenging aspects of recognizing trauma in your life is the tendency to minimize your experience. You might think it wasn't that bad or compare your trauma to others and feel that you should not feel so affected. Those are lies. And they can lead to excuses to make you not do anything about your situation because it's not as bad as Annie's or Bobby's. It is important to remember that trauma is subjective. It's not about the people on the outside, the object. It's up to the self. It's subjective. What may seem manageable to one person can be overwhelming to another, depending on factors like past experiences, emotional resilience, and support systems. Trauma is not about the event itself. I said this every single night consistently for 6 nights. It is not about the event itself. Isn't that powerful? It's about how it affects you. I can hear Ron Bonner in my ear right now. You are the matter that matters. It's how it affects you. Instead of judging or dismissing your feelings, acknowledge them with compassion. It is okay to say, this experience hurt me, or I'm still affected by what happened. Recognizing the validity of your pain is crucial, and it is a critical first step towards your healing. So let it out. That's what Soul Detox is all about. Let it out, letting all of the gook and the grime and the toxicity and the dysfunction and the pain, letting all of that gook out through our entire system, not just in our thoughts, not just in our emotions, not just in our feelings, not just in our mind, not just in our psyche, but those that are even hidden in the body, because trauma hangs out in the body. So let's get to some of our workbook exercises on tonight. And we're going to be connecting some dots. That's what I do on my side when I work with my clients. We're connecting behaviors to trauma. In this exercise, we will begin to explore how trauma might be affecting your life, even if you have not consciously connected the dots before. What are some behaviors and thoughts or emotions you have been struggling with recently? That's number one. Recent. We're talking about recent, not what you believe is attached to your traumatic event. Remember last night we gave the example on the connecting the dots with the person who wrote their lifeline. And on their lifeline, they marked the lifeline with specific ages in their life where pivotal events happened. And some were positive and okay, and some were negative and not okay. And then we were able to connect some of the stressors, chronic stress that they're dealing with today, whether it's psychological, emotional, spiritual, or physical, with the trauma that they had back in whatever time they've had it in. So we need to start with the here and the now. What are some behaviors, thoughts, or emotions that you have been struggling with recently? Now, you probably are the only one that knows this, but if you're someone like me where you share a lot, when you have conversations with people, you just kind of like say, I've been feeling like this lately, or going through this lately, or had these kind of dreams, or I've been having nightmares, or I'm not sleeping well, or I don't have an appetite. And, the other day I realized I had a headache and realized I had a headache because I hadn't eaten all day. Like, what are some of the thoughts and behaviors and emotions that you've been struggling with recently? Write them down. Take a couple minutes because you matter. You matter. And guess what? You were able to hide out from the world and not treat yourself the way you should have. But in this community, you're not going to be able to hide out because you matter to us. What are some behaviors, thoughts, or emotions that you've been struggling with recently? Apathy. I see that coming. I see some people saying sleep. Very good. Come on. This is very important. Think about areas of your life where you feel stuck. Oh, my business is booming well, but my spiritual life, I don't know, I'm stuck. Oh, my spiritual life, oh my God, so many things are happening. I'm seeing doors open up to my prayer life. I'm starting to see healings and miracles in the lives of those that I'm praying for. I've been praying for my enemies and miracles been happening to me. Oh my God, my spiritual life is amazing. But my relationships, or all of my relationships are wonderful. I wish the way I am in my relationship showed up in my jobs. Think about the areas of your life where you feel stuck. Be honest. And don't care if it's like, well, I know I can fix it or change it. The fact of the matter is that you feel stuck, you have not fixed it, you have not changed it, should be concerning to you. It's like having the keys in your hand, having a destination to go to, but you refuse to put the key in the ignition. You have the tools to do it, but you're stuck. Are you anxious, overwhelmed? In what areas of your life do you tend to feel the most anxiety? What areas of your life overwhelms you a lot? Where do you tend to become overwhelmed? Is it through people's expectations? Is it when you're not going to feel as though you are coming through this thing looking perfect? What are the areas, as of recent, that has brought you some anxiousness or it has even made you feel overwhelmed? Write down the specific behaviors, such as avoiding certain situations, feeling chronically exhausted, or reacting strongly to minor issues. That's a big one as well. Reacting strongly to minor issues. You ever had that conversation with someone and you were like, whoa, okay, I wish that was a text message. Like, why are they blowing up over something like that? How we doing? Check your pulse. Number 2, can you identify any patterns or triggers? Every time someone says this, every time someone does this, every time I have this thought, every time something, look for a pattern. Identify patterns. And you can identify patterns in your life when you locate the triggers. Or in the reverse, when you begin to notice the things that trigger you, there's usually a pattern attached to it. Let's connect the dots. Did you like playing that game when you were a child? Yeah. And you would see some beautiful design, maybe a clown or a sun or a picnic basket or a tree when you connect the dots. When we connect the dots in mental health life coaching, we're either connecting the dots until we make a T for trauma or until we make a tree. And sometimes we connect the dots with roots. When I'm doing root work, I have roots drawn. And when so many of the dots are connected, doesn't have to be all of them, I can tell that we are in the root of what the situation is. Connecting the dots is very powerful. You'd be surprised. A lot of the things that they had us do as children were very psychological, some good and some not so good, like those nursery rhymes. But they were more psychological, I believe, than the things they have the children doing now. So, what do you see for patterns or triggers? Look at your behaviors or your emotions that you wrote down and consider if they are linked to any specific triggers. Why are some days harder for you to get out of bed? Why are some days you go through exhausted when you know you slept for a good 8 or even 10 hours? What is the pattern there? Look over your day. What happened? What's coming up? For example, do certain people, places, or topics cause you to feel anxious or upset? I can tell when I talk to people and I ask something, you can tell there's a trigger attached to it. If you see that, write those down. If you don't, you will hopefully by the end of our 30-day detox. Can we move on to question 3? Reflect on past experiences that may have been connected to these triggers. What past experiences have you had in your life? If you get a notebook, piece of paper, or if you do it on your iPad, you're techie, just draw a line. Draw a line from the left side of the paper to the right side of the paper. And just make the left side of the paper your birth and the end of the right side of the paper, the age you are now. And in between this line, I want you to make little markers. And each marker should be an age where something memorable, something pivotal has happened in your life, good, bad, or indifferent. And just make little bubbles with the words enclosed on some of those past experiences. Because if we can learn more of your history, your past experiences, we can easily profile to ask you, okay, you had this. Do you find yourself going through this? Do you find yourself dealing with anxiety? Do you feel yourself just based on your past experiences? And then if we can learn your past experiences, we can do a profile and ask you, doing an assessment, if any of these um, responses show up in you. And if you say yes, then we take it to the next step and we connect it. How's your relationships? How's your spiritual life? How's your sleep patterns? We go out that way. We can connect the dots and tell the root of where it's coming from. It's so freeing. I had a client get free in one day. Some people take months. Some people took years. They left and came back again. And then we got the real work done. Because as I stated in the beginning when we opened up, this is really brave work. It's scary. It feels naked. Vulnerability is never easy when you first start learning how to be vulnerable. So reflecting on your past experiences will help us connect the dots to triggers. Think about where these behaviors or emotions might have originated. Was there a specific event or period in your life that could be linked to how you are feeling now? Allow yourself to reflect without judgment. This is about understanding, not about blame. We're not blaming even the people who did whatever they did to us. We're working our first work and we're working towards understanding and not blame. I'll give you an example from me. When I was a young girl, I had migraines, and my parents didn't really believe in doctors, or I shouldn't say they didn't believe in doctors because they did. I remember when I was near death, they brought me to a doctor, but it wasn't something that my family, and I'm sure a lot of families in those days readily did. Like a kid will fall down now and they take him to the hospital. But us? You better be showing some bone and flesh before you go to the hospital. In the house I grew up in, so I didn't get any treatment for migraines. And when I became a young woman in my 20s and I ended up working in the medical field, I was hired by a neurologist. He immediately diagnosed my migraines and told me, "You have migraines. How long have you been suffering these?" I remember since I was about 12 years old. And even in neurology, they have a bordering of psychology. And he was asking some of my history. And he wasn't treating me as a patient. He wanted me to be at work. I had a very important position with him. So he needed me at work. So he's like, "What do we got to do to heal you to get you here?" And when he asked my history, I never realized, because no one else in my family gets migraines, but I never realized that the first time I saw something that was a migraine that I would never have known if I had not spoken with this neurologist. He said, "Do you remember the first time you had one?" I said, "I absolutely do." And he said, "Well, what was so remarkable to you that you would remember your first headache, your first migraine?" And I said, "It wasn't the headache or the pain that was remarkable to me at first. It was the zigzags and the squares and the triangles that I saw in the air, and I saw like fleeting silver dots. They would start to make numbers or symbols and then they would disappear." And he taught me those are migraine auras. You get auras with your migraine. So he was able to tell me exactly the type of migraine I had and how I needed to be treating them so they wouldn't be a problem to me, at least while I'm at work with him. Now, here's the key to it. He immediately asked me, "When you saw those auras, do you remember what was going on? You said you were 12 or 13. So were you already past menstrual time? Was this something that was hormone related?" And I was like, "Oh no, I remember I would get those zigzags and squares and circles and those little silver dots in the air that would disappear as they were forming way before I had head pain." And he said to me, "Well, what was going on when you were seeing those auras? Because now we have a term for them." And I said, "My father was a yeller. He hollered all the time." And I remember all my life. Now, my father was my sweetheart. Okay. I'd fight, kill, give blood for that man. To this day, he, out of the two parents, that's my man right there. But he was a yeller. He hollered constantly, all the time. And I don't know how my mother dealt with it, but I think I realized as I have become trained and educated, the effects of that stress on her and how it showed up physically in her body. But back to me, how it showed up in my body is it caused the auras, and auras usually come with stress. So my migraines were stress induced. I was never hit. My father never punished me. When my mother wanted me punished, my father protected me. When she really wanted me to get it, he would take me out of the house and pretend he was going to have this talk with me, and we'd end up at the ice cream shop. Like, that's my dude. You hear what I'm saying? So it wasn't that he was a violent man. He wasn't a physical man at all. I remember seeing my father cry, like very sensitive, caring, emotional man, but he yelled and hollered all the time. And it caused stress in my body because I did not know what to do with the emotion that came with his yelling. Even though I wasn't in trouble, it felt like I was in trouble. Even though there was going to be no violence in the house, my mother and father probably had 2 arguments my entire life, and they apologized to us for even letting us hear those 2. That's how it was back in those days. And I knew he wasn't going to hit my mom. I had no experience of him being violent or physically hitting her or hurting her. So it wasn't like I was traumatized, like, oh my God, he's going to hit her. Once the elevation of the voice comes, somebody's going to get hit. Something's going to get broken. Somebody's going to start swearing. There's going to be doors slamming. The police are going to come. There was none of that escalating, ruminating fear from the default family dynamics of my household growing up. It was just the yelling and hollering all the time. And I found out his father was a very, very harsh taskmaster. So that's probably where he got some of that from. But I was able to trace back where these migraines come from. Why am I sharing this story with you? Because I want you to understand that even though I was in my 20s by the time I figured out where the headaches came from, because trauma and stress hides out in the body. Once the trauma and the stress, chronic stress, because it was definitely long-term, continuous pieces over my entire life of living with them, that these headaches came. But before the headaches, it was the signs of stress, the auras. So trauma lives in the body. And long after my parents were dead, I still had migraines. And then I just thank God to God. One day I started praying about it, and I consistently made it a prayer and a fast for it. And it kind of like was a hit and miss with the headaches. They dissipated some. And I can truly say today that I have a testimony. I am completely healed and set free from migraines. I am on no medication to treat them because I was able to go to the root of the cause, face the fear that I had from his yelling, and face, because again, he was never violent. He never hurt any of us. He never gave any kind of spankings or anything at all like that. We did some pretty rough things to them when we were teenagers. We stole out their little piggy bank and things like that. So we've done things to them that could deserve something. I don't even remember getting sent to my room for punishment. Very caring, maybe too much parents, but that yelling. So that yelling that remember the other night we talked about secondary trauma? I was the recipient of secondary trauma because he wasn't even yelling at me. It wasn't directed to me. If he was yelling and screaming about something and I came out of the door, he would stop. Now, he knew I could hear through the paper walls, but he would stop if we came around. He was like, hey, sweetheart, what do you want? You need anything, baby? You want to go and get some ice cream with dad? It was like, cool. So it wasn't like I had a fear of anything, but yet being a part of secondary trauma caused unknown fears in me. And it was the fear that something might happen, but I never could label what I thought would happen. So I was the recipient, the product of secondary trauma, and it caused auras that led to migraines that I am now have a testimony now and are healed completely from. I do not get any of them anymore. The blurred vision, the auras, the headaches, anything. So God can do it. But doing the work helped a lot. And I've got to be honest about that. There's 2 things that's called healing and deliverance. And I believe that they both are necessary. So think about how these things have impacted your life, keeping these things locked up in your psyche, keeping these things locked up in your body. They're no good locked in our body. So reflect without judgment. I'm not blaming my father. I made sure that you guys heard the truth from me, that there was no violence or anything that I was afraid of with him. There's no judgment. And I'm not assigning blame, but I'm going into my history, not even theirs. And I'm finding the links to the triggers and the traumas that have affected me in my adult life. And the last part of our workbook exercise, how has this impacted your life over time? Well, one, I missed a lot of events. Two, I had a great fear that I had a tumor because my mom died of a brain tumor. So I connected the headaches to the brain tumor, and they were, thank you God, not even connected at all. But that's what trauma does. And when the ruminating starts and the worrying starts, these things will steal your life. Never mind just our joy. They would take your life and you'll be sitting around waiting for death to come, and you've lived 60 years and death hasn't come, and you die of an old age. Like, these things, they rob, they kill, they steal, they destroy relationships. They steal your life, your joy, rob you of great things because you're locked in this fear, or locked in this fear that something's going to happen, but I don't know what, because I was just a part of a secondary trauma. Are y'all with me? Am I ministering tonight? Is anybody feeling this? So write down both the immediate and long-term effects, even if they feel small or significant. Now, just to finish on that little recap, how has this affected me today since I'm healed from migraines? So that's a checklist, right? I've met the goal of being healed from that trauma and the trauma response, right? Nope. You know how it still shows up? Whenever someone yells at me, it's not good for me at all. And I cannot take hollering and yelling to this day. It just brings back, I don't know if I can truly say it completely translates me psychologically into the yelling and screaming that I received from him, or if it's just relives the stress triggers that are in me. But whenever someone hollers and screams, I just can't be around it. I've been at restaurants, y'all. I've been in department stores, pharmacies, where I've seen people yelling at the store workers, and I go and say something. It's a trigger for me. I've been in places where I've seen people treating their kids a certain way. And here I go. Pray for me, y'all. It's a trigger for me. And I cannot take to see people yelled at, hollered at, or yelled or hollered at myself. It's a trigger for me. So it's not over. 50 something years old now. I was 12 years old that I can recall these auras started. Those migraines happened probably up into my 30s before I was delivered from them. But the effects of the trauma, the trigger, to this day, I cannot be around people who yell and holler. I will leave. It's not good for me. And it makes me defensive. It makes me feel as though I have to protect myself. And that's the response to the trauma. So when we do all this work and we go from awareness to insight to application and transformation, the goal of all of this is to move forward, not to keep sitting here talking about your father. Now, if he was abusive, or were there some deep, dark psychological traumas that were happening to me from that, I would need to go see a therapist for that, because therapists help you go into your past. Coaches help you deal with these aspects of what I just shared on tonight. But the goal is to move forward. And when you can't move forward, that's when you should see a licensed therapist. That's their job. That's what they're there for. Dump your mess on their desk. Let them do that work. But for tonight, moving forward from this lesson, we are recognizing trauma in our life as an essential step to reclaiming our mental and emotional health. It is often hidden, unacknowledged trauma that does the most damage, because it affects us in ways that we may not be fully aware of or understand. But these 6 nights so far, we have been shining a light on our trauma, both the obvious and the subtle. You opened the door to healing. Isn't that wonderful? Wow. Whew, what time is it? What time is it? Oh, wow. We're 10 minutes ahead. This is the time I want to usually end. So this is a powerful moment for us all tonight. I hope my testimony helped y'all out a lot. Let's see. I don't have my other gadget here, and my new employee has not shown up for work. I think she's on a Snapchat group meeting. But there was a question that came in tonight that I do want to answer. And I want to answer her in the most lightest, surface level answer that I can give, because traumas are real, memory relapses are real, and you don't want to re-traumatize someone. And when you think of re-traumatizing someone, you're thinking probably, again, they have had to have gone through some catastrophic event. No, we're at day 6. We know better now. That is not what it has to do. It doesn't even have to be that. So on the lightest possible way, I've had someone inbox with a question, and they said that they recently suffered the loss of a loved one, and it is trauma. I want to validate that for you. It is a traumatic experience. And the context of the question was, I feel like I'm going through the grieving process as well. I haven't really cried, but I do cry. I'm not holding anything back. I'm completely open to the human experience of mourning and grieving. But for some reason, I keep feeling as though my loved one's going to come back in the door. I'm holding out, feeling as though they're coming back. I just can't get my mind off of it. And they wanted to know, what could that be that makes me believe, because I know in my head that they're not coming back, but something in my mind just has me believing that they're going to come back. And what that is actually called, it's a phenomenon that comes from death, grief, and dying. And it's called denial or disbelief. And it's part of the grieving steps. The grieving process is described by stages, and it was one of the important psychologist's daughter who actually discovered this, and it's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. The stages to grief go like this, and they can go in any order, and you can backslide into one that you already came through. So they're not in chronological order. And it can go into denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. This isn't necessarily the type of denial that we deal with in a lot of our therapeutic processes, where someone is refusing to believe something happened, that they're refusing to believe that the death happened. But rather, this is an emotional disconnect from the reality. It's a survival mechanism that our brain has when an event has happened that is too much for us to cope with. Our mind brings us into a survival mode and helps you to emotionally disconnect from the reality. When your body is present, your mind is present, but emotionally, you're telling yourself another story. The belief that this loved one might walk back in the door is a manifestation of your mind's difficulty reconciling the reality of the death. This is particularly common. There's nothing wrong with you in that sense. And it's especially common when you have suffered the loss of someone that was very sudden and unexpected. The brain is struggling to process the absence of someone who was a constant presence in your life. So a few of the things that I just want to mention for you tonight, and thank you for sharing your question with us, asking me to even share it on tonight in case there's others that need to benefit from this. Some of the key points for you to remember in these stages of grieving is your brain might be holding on to familiar routines and expectations, like this loved one coming back in the door, because the loss hasn't fully integrated into your lived experience. Okay. This creates a dissonance. Have you heard of cognitive dissonance? This creates a dissonance between what you know intellectually that this person has passed on and what you feel emotionally. You see the difference between your intellectual knowledge and your emotional knowledge. They have not paired up, they have not agreed on this event that has happened in your life. It's also what's called a protective numbness. And it protects you so that you can handle this well. God loves us so much. He doesn't want us to crack, doesn't want us to lose it. So he will allow our minds, and I'm going to say it in a way that I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it before, but he will allow our mind to lie to us, to protect us from the reality of what has really happened until you are better capable or ready to deal with it. Just know that over time, these emotions, not your intellect, are suppressed and they can resurface later down the line. So, have a little talk with your family. If you have them on with you tonight, I'm having the talk for you, and let them know that you're going through it the way you are, not because you don't love them or miss them or grieving. You just are grieving differently, different stage, different process than the rest of the family is. But later on, anxiety may show up, anger may show up, and some physical symptoms. So if that starts to happen, I want you to contact us personally. I want you to understand that grief as a non-linear process. Grief doesn't follow our strict timeline. It's not, you can't put it in the calendar. Disbelief and numbness often occur in the early stages, and they can reappear, especially when something triggers memories of that loved one. The idea that this loved one could walk in the door could also be your way or your mind's way of maintaining a sense of connection to him. And that's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with that. This isn't unhealthy, and it's your brain's way of trying to preserve the bond while adjusting to the new reality. But you will get there and you will process through it all. So I can help you to normalize your experience. I can help you through some encouragement and reflection. I do grief counseling. We can help you through that, but I'm always here for you anyway because I know who you are. And I can help you prepare for the waves of grief. So think of grief as waves, and I can help you through the waves of grief. I hope that answered your question fully on tonight. If there's anything more, if you'd like that in writing, I can even send that over to you. I want to thank you all for your questions and trusting me when it comes to your mental health matters. I'm just so godly blessed and excited at all that we are doing in here. What a powerful group of people. I couldn't be if it wasn't for y'all. So it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful what we're doing. This work is a wonderful thing. Now, I said I was going to save something exciting until the end, and this is what it's going to be. We've been trying to do this for some time now, so I would like to personally invite you all, whether you're in Connecticut or out of Connecticut, I would like to personally invite you all to a Soul Detox live event on our last night here, January 31st, 2025. That's our last night for our 30-day detox, and we are hosting it live in person since it's a Friday night and it's the last night, and we want to celebrate. We want to we're going to have it live recorded, and we're going to have some time for question and answers at the end, a short reception afterwards to kind of meet each other. We're trying to even hook it up so that those who are out of Connecticut that are unable to come in can actually get in on screen with us, and we can say hello to you, and we can meet each other and put some faces to all of these comments and questions if you're comfortable with that. So I want to give you a personal invitation. Ebony, our secretary, is going to put the link up on the website. It should be up in a couple of days. You can go in and reserve your tickets. I do want to make a special comment to those who had purchased tickets prior to our Unleash Your Inner Man conference that was delayed. Well, all of your tickets are being moved over to this event on January 31st. So I hope that you are available to attend it. We're going to have, what did we say, check-in time? Doors open at 7. It will start at 8 o'clock, like we do here every night, until 9. And then we'll have a reception or so for about an hour and a half afterwards. So go onto the website. You can find out more information about it. I need to see you there. I need you. After these 30 days, I need you. I need the high fives. I need the hugs. I need the faces. I need to take the pictures. I need to cheers with you. I need to sign your books. We need to do some great things together on that last day to fuel the motivation and to keep the transformation going. We're a tribe, we're a family, and we're making things happen. I want to thank everyone for your likes and shares. People are reaching back that they're seeing it. YouTube is pushing the video out there. So people are seeing it because y'all are becoming members on YouTube, subscribers on YouTube. You're sending your stars in. Can we go ahead and do that now? Can we send in, what is the 99 stars for 99 cents on Facebook? Can you go in and send some stars up on YouTube? Let's make this thing happen so that others can be blessed and we're not just keeping it to ourselves. I'm excited. Are you excited? Can you be there on January 31st with me? We are reserving the Mark Twain House Auditorium. So we're going to be on a large stage. It's going to be a live stage. It's going to be on audience chairs. We're going to have the VIP sections for those that want VIP. There's going to be something special for you. Regular seating for those that are going to come in and go out. But we're going to have such a night. Just know that it's going to be live recorded, and it is going to be shown on a TV station afterwards. And we'll give you information about what station that it's being viewed on. And we're going to take this thing to the next level. This is my 9th season. Somebody say 9. This is my 9th season, 9th January doing this. And it's time for the next level. There's no other room for us on this grade level. It is time for us to take this thing above the roof. But I need you there with me. So tell me on the screen that you'll be there with me, and we'll make sure that an email and information is sent out to everyone who is RSVP'd on our website. Okay, I gotta go. I think I handled everything. Our t-shirt for tonight is Peace Begins Within. Peace begins within. I think this is my favorite t-shirt because it most certainly does. Because they can be crazy out here, but I'm going to make sure I have my peace in here first. And I will do everything I need to do to keep this peace inside and to shake anything off on the outside that's not aligning with the peace in my life. Thank you for the stars. Keep sending them. I'll give you a shout out on tomorrow night. I promise. I wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. God bless you and good night.